Well, good hump day morning, friends. Mark Holmes here. Joe Boo is holding down the red brick house, but we got Joe Bear. Always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and keeping the Joe Boo Sports Report right here. Let's get open for business here. Damn. Got my hand stuck in there. And let's wake up those football gods. It was a crazy night last night because in the matter of 30 minutes, Russell Wilson signed, and I didn't believe it, with the New York Giants. And just before that, Stephon Diggs, recovering from an ACL, signed when it came out, 3-year, $69 million contract with the New England Patriots. Now, there was some thought that the Cowboys might be interested. Now, let's back this up for a second here. Right now is kind of the dead time between teams getting ready for the draft, doing the 30 visits, and things and all that. We got the pro days and stuff, but there's really not a lot of big news that's happening. And so what always happens is when it's slow time out there, all you have to do is say Dallas Cowboys might be interested in B.A.M. And it starts off a whole firestorm. Literally, everybody has commented on the idea of the Cowboys trading for Joe Milton, 6th-round pick. And everybody has gone and fallen back on the video of him pro day that they said, they got to move the pro day from inside to outside so that way he doesn't hit the ceiling with the football. And he launches the football 80 yards down the field. And everybody, all my brethren out here, the talking heads and everything else, and it all comes from one guy saying, don't be surprised if the Cowboys try to make a move for him. Because the Patriots, new coaching staff, Mike Vrabel and all that, not looking at him to be the guy. So immediately, anybody who's on the market is, of course, don't be surprised if. This is not coming from the Dallas Cowboys that they sent somebody over there to talk to the Patriots about them or anything like that. This isn't Jerry Jones saying, that guy, that Joe Milton, he's got some Tony Romo. We didn't get that kind of stuff. We have a talking head that literally said there might be, don't be surprised, the Cowboys could explore. And then everybody goes off, on a wild tangent. Oh, the Cowboys, we getting Dak Prescott's, replacement. And if I had a dollar for every time we went off a tangent and said we got Dak Prescott's replacement, I'd have a couple of dollars. I could go to the club and, make it drizzle. I could make it drizzle. I don't know about rain, but we could make it drizzle. And so now you got everybody going through, should the Cowboys trade? Is he a fit? And you would think that we would be trading for Joe Montana. You would think we were trading for Joe Montana. But be that as it may, the New York Giants did make a move yesterday. The New York Giants signed Russell Wilson. Do we need to be worried about the New York Giants with Russell Wilson? Now, there was interest in, of course, Aaron Rodgers, who I guess Aaron Rodgers, the only place left is the Pittsburgh Steelers or retirement. And I guess if he retires, Steelers in trouble. The Giants have Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito, and now Russell Wilson. Maybe this changes how they go in the draft, that they're not going to look at Sedor because we looked at Sedor as being probably going there. Sedor may be dropping. It may be that the Giants looked at this and said, after going through Daniel Jones and all that are we going to invest that number one pick on a quarterback again that we're not really sure of? Let's get some veterans in here and see what's what and who's who. Or let's just tank maybe and see if we can get a chance at Arch Manning. That could be the take. That could be. Maybe. I don't know. But here's what we learned yesterday. I think what happened yesterday changes what the Cowboys have to do in the draft. Keenan Allen is still out there at wide receiver. We have not had a bona fide number 2 wide receiver since we had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb in CeeDee Lamb's rookie year. We desperately need a guy at number 2. And it may end up being that they're going to look and say, we're just going to roll the dice on Jalen Tolbert. It's a contract year. He got 600 yards last year. He can be our number 2. Maybe that might be the plan. But sitting here looking at what has transpired and what is crazy is the amount of money that the wide receivers, the veteran wide receivers, the plus 30 club is getting is freaking insane. It's insane. Here we have Davante Adams. Davante Adams goes to the Rams, 2 years, $46 million. That's $23 million a year. His numbers have been kind of going downhill for the last few years. Cooper Kupp, who's been injured each of the last 3 years, production has been down, gets a 3-year, $45 million. That's $15 million a year. Adams is $23 a year. Now, there's not all that's not guaranteed money and things. So really, they're more of 1-year type deals. But still, we're still looking at a big chunk of change. Deebo Samuels gets traded to Washington. They don't give him another contract, but he's a $17 million hit for them. That seems like a bargain kind of at the moment. And then you have Diggs, who, as we look at Sports Track, they said that his market value is $13.7 million. That's what they said his estimated market value was yesterday before he signed his deal. Yeah. Basically, he got $26 million guaranteed. So really, that's a 1-year deal. But $26 million for a wide receiver who's coming back from an ACL. And I'll remind you about Michael Gallup coming back from an ACL. I get it. They're saying he's ahead of schedule and things. I got it. But the Cowboys are not going to spend that kind of money. So here's the thing. There is Keenan Allen out there. Keenan Allen averaged 10.6 yards per reception last year. I believe slightly below 1,000 yards. Was healthy as opposed to some of these guys. And mind you, all of these guys that we just mentioned are in the 30-plus club. I don't see the Cowboys wanting to look at this. If you're saying Stephon Diggs is $13.7 million and he ends up getting a 23 per year deal, then that's going to put Keenan Allen at about $20 million. Is Keenan Allen at this point worth $20 million a year? I don't know. I can definitely say I don't see the Cowboys wanting to spend $20 million on a wide receiver that is that old. I just don't see it. Maybe the trade option that we've heard, with Denver, maybe that sounds a little bit better, but you're still going to pay him. If you're going to pay this kind of money for a wide receiver, we can't do it as a 1-year rental. You just can't. And I think that this kind of points you in the direction and saying, we're going to need to go wide receiver in the draft. What we've learned is this. When it comes to free agency, you don't want to be in the market for a wide receiver. It's going to cost you a whole lot. Running backs, even with Derrick Henry last year going for $8 million a year, that's a bargain. When you look even at Rico getting his contract, which guaranteed money was like $2.5 million. Running back money is chump change by comparison. Hell, Russell Wilson signs with New York with basically $11 million guaranteed and 21 possible if he ends up going and doing great things. who would have thought that quarterback would be cheaper than wide receiver right now? But basically, that's where we are. And so I think this kind of dictates that the Cowboys have to take a receiver with that number 1 pick, unless Genty falls in their lap, where it's just an offer that you just can't refuse. But you almost have to look at saying you must draft a wide receiver every year. You have to. There's not many options. Tell me the options. And now this is where you understand why they take a flyer on Jonathan Mingo with the 4th round pick. At least he's cheap. Or bringing in Paris Campbell and saying, okay, maybe we can coach him up. But you can't drop 20, 23, 25 million on an aging wide receiver that's only going to be there for a year or two and may not be much better than what Brandon Cooks is. Mind you, what did Brandon Cooks sign for? Brandon Cooks signed for it, 31 years of age. He's at least affordable. 2 years, $13 million. But even that, injured last year, 32 years of age, wide receiver's expensive. So you have to look at it maybe in free agency a little bit differently and saying running backs, defensive line, cornerbacks, safeties, those are relatively cost-effective moves. Wide receivers, the market is just crazy. And so you may have to look and say, we're going to go elsewhere. Now, back to the New York Giants. This is an interesting one to me because I started thinking and saying, okay, I watched Cop Pizzle last night. Cop Pizzle, after Jameis Winston, he ended up melting down. Now they got Russell Wilson. He's excited as can be. So the question is, what Russell Wilson is it? Is it Russell Wilson that we saw in Seattle under Brian Schottenheimer? Or is it the early Denver's Russell Wilson? I don't know. But I have to look at this and say the Giants still have a long ways to go. A long ways to go. And this is them trying to say, we're going to do the best we can to try and win now, to try and save our jobs. Maybe their front office is looking at this and saying, we're kind of tanking. But let's take ESPN's take, because there's a little bit different than what most people will think.
Russell Wilson is now a Giant, a 1-year deal worth up to $21 million. Half of that is guaranteed. He heads to the NFC East. The Giants' projected starter, joining a quarterback room that includes Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito for now. They also have a wide receiver, Darius Slayton, and he was excited about this move yesterday, tweeting, "Giants country, let's ride." So he's ready for this. Yesterday, I mentioned that we have an executive producer on this show who has been integral in our in whatever success we've had here on Get Up. His name is Pete McConville. I call him Angry Pete from New Jersey. And after we had, because he's the angriest person that you know, he just wakes up in a bad mood and every single day. So he sends me a text after the conversation that we had earlier this morning about Russell Wilson. I just want to read it. I apologize for the language, but this is how he talks. He said, "We, the Giants, would suck with Wilson anyway, so just suck again, get the number 1 pick with a new coach and new general manager and reset." I think he speaks for a lot of Giant fans when he says that. Does it make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I don't think, like I said, if they would have brought in Aaron Rodgers, I didn't think they were going to have a great season. And, Vegas agrees with this. So I think you have to have – it's tough when you have a regime that's fighting for their existence, but then you have to do what's good for the team in the long haul as well. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
No, they put themselves between a rock and a hard place. Because if you were starting over with a new coach, look, I don't fire people. It's not my job to do that. I'm not telling them they should have. Right. But, I mean, John Mara made it as clear as he possibly could at an interview in New York with Bruce Beck when he said, "This better start winning in a hurry. I'm losing my patience." Well, when you say that, you're saying we need to win now. You're telling your general manager and your coach, you guys have to win now. And that does not conflate with what should be the strategy for the Giants right now, which is a long-term strategy. Your over-under in Vegas is 3.5 wins, for crying out loud. So if you love the quarterback now, then you take him. But you put yourself into a trick box here, and that's what bothers me about this.
We
I equate what the Giants are doing exactly what the Bears are doing for a long time. And that's why the Bears have been in this quarterback conundrum for years because, listen, you stick with the guy too long, then they pick a quarterback, the next thing you know, you fire the whole regime, you start all over again. Yeah. And the Giants are basically in the same cycle right now. And they're not going to get out of it until really it's all about John Murray, the owner. Yeah. At some point, you got us like, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to stop holding on to people for the sake of holding on to people and move on.
At this point, to what Angry Pete just said.
Angry Pete from New Jersey.
If you're Brian Dable and Joe Shane, I want my kids to continue to go to school here in Jersey so they can finish out. So I'm going to get a Russell Wilson. And also for Giants fans, it's one thing in March to say, let's just suck and let's deal with it next year. But in the middle of December, when they're out there and they're getting blown out by 30, there's no Giants fan that sits there and says, you know what, I love this plan because Arch Manning is coming out in the draft and we're just going to be great. No, you're pissed off because your team sucks and you don't like the product on the field. And that's what happened last year. They were out there, they weren't winning games, and now you have to give the team credit for trying to win.
Let's go back to where this all started. Their loyalty to Eli Manning went too long. We see the same thing happen in Pittsburgh. So what happens is it's always hard to replace a legend. So they've been trying to replace a legend, and they doubled down on Danny Dimes, and they were wrong. And because he won a playoff game, they gave him the extension. They extended the wrong player. They should have gave him the franchise tag. And then they would have saw what he truly was. So now they're stuck. And now you have a regime that's trying to figure out, do I do what's best for me or what's best for the organization? Last year, the Jets were in the same position.
Right.
And you
look how well that worked out.
But you looked at what Joe Douglas did. The pick was the tight end Bowers to try and save his job. But the responsible pick was Fashanu. And this is where the Giants find themselves. Do I do what's best for the organization, or do I do what's best for me to kick the can down the road? And taking a quarterback like Shador could give them an opportunity to sell hope in the future. That's where we have to come up. But to do Murrow say, hey, I picked wrong. And just because he watched a documentary about his dad and he said that they have a plan, I would love to see what the plan that Shane and J-Ball told them. Because I guarantee you it didn't include drafting or trading for Russell Wilson to bring a Russell Wilson in hopes to save their job.
Look, don't get me wrong. I think signing Russell Wilson was exactly the right thing to do under these circumstances for the point you're making. Someone has to play quarterback when the season starts in September. And I don't think that Jameis Winston was going to be that. They're paying him $2 million. So that wasn't the plan for him to be the guy. The point I'm making is if you take Shador Sanders now at 3 because these guys love him, and then they have new guys in there next year, now Shador's not their guy, so do they love him? Like this, you're just setting yourself up on this hamster wheel.
Watch every team do it. Well, you draft a quarterback in year 4, he's playing for his 4th different offensive coordinator, 3rd different head coach. So to your point, you can't keep doing that.
You're saying, hey, Greeny, where does all of this leave Aaron Rodgers? Well,
that's a good question.
Let's dive into that. Rodgers has been in conversation with several teams this offseason, including the Giants. We know that was one of them. That's out now.
Minnesota.
We know about the Steelers. We think we know about the Vikings. Last week, sources told ESPN that Minnesota was moving past their discussions with Rodgers and keeping their focus on the young J.J. McCarthy. But yesterday, McCarthy was on with our friend Kay Adams on the Up and Adams show, and he had some very interesting comments about the entire situation. Listen.
I feel like we as a fan base or even media found out like you're the guy, the guy recently. When did you know? When did they tell you, or when was that message to you?
They haven't told me, and I'm happy they did because I try to earn it every single day, and I never want that to be given to me, and it's such a privilege and opportunity to give me that chance, and I'm just going to make the most of it every single day.
All right, so great answer, as you said, right?
Love it.
If you're a vet in that locker room, you love the answer.
Absolutely. You have a guy that wants to go out there and prove to the rest of the locker room, yes, the coaching staff, even if they believe in me, I have to show you guys that I'm worthy of leading you.
Yes. So that part of it, excellent. But B, I want to get Bart like one of those Sherlock Holmes hats, because you heard that and you were all of a sudden a little detective, little windy fingers. What do you think you're hearing here?
I mean, I wonder if Minnesota's internally still deciding should they bring in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, because Aaron Rodgers only really has one place to go, and that's Pittsburgh. So why isn't that deal done? Because I think maybe backdoor channels are trying to figure out how do I get to Minnesota. Because Minnesota is all in. When you look at what they've done in the offseason, they went and signed Jonathan Allen, Hargrave, and they also brought in Ryan Kelly. They went out and brought in Will Freeze. They're all in. And the last time, it only happened twice. that a first-year starter won a Super Bowl. That was Tom Brady and Kurt Warner. Mm-hmm. Are you telling me that you believe that this kid is that? He could be a good quarterback in the future, but I think the person that gives him the best chance to go up into the top 5 as far as Super Bowl contenders is Aaron Rodgers. For everybody, and I heard what Booger said yesterday, and I have tremendous respect for Booger, but I am contractually obligated to watch every single Jet play as I do pre and post. Not that it's a glorious job. I think I need a Nobel Peace Prize for being able to watch that stuff. But it wasn't the fact that Aaron Rodgers wasn't a good player last year. It was more that Tyron Smith had broken down and he got beat up the first couple of games. If you look at what he did, he played at a high enough level to get a roster like what Minnesota has over the hump. You mean to tell me that you believe that you're going to trust J.J. McCarthy against maybe the defending Super Bowl champs to not be a rookie? Like, we haven't seen a guy that's a first-year starter not have those rookie moments.
You set it up, though. You led with Tom Brady and Kurt Warner. No one expected those guys in those seasons to have the success that they had. Okay. So if you're the Minnesota Vikings and you want Aaron Rodgers, what's stopping you from signing him? He's available. He's there. He hasn't signed with the Steelers. So if that was the case, then why not sign with Minnesota?
Because he's a flake.
Him a contract now and have him as your starter. I think
because it makes you nervous, right? I mean, because it can't help but make you. The thought of doing it can't help but make you nervous. Let's also remind everyone who doesn't remember.
This is crazy.
The Patriots didn't go to Tom Brady willingly. Got hurt. The Rams didn't go to Kurt Warner willingly. Trent Green got hurt. Dick Vermeil cried at the press conference and said, "We're going to play great football around Kurt Warner," and we all laughed at him. And the next thing you know, he was the MVP and they won the Super Bowl. The point is, those were not choices that were made. Those were choices that were sort of foisted.
This is very true.
I'll ask you, D. Wood, if you agree with Bart, and I think you do, the Vikings have a really good roster.
Yeah.
Would you, if they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, will it be with J.J. McCarthy, who has never taken an NFL snap, or with Aaron Rodgers?
I'm going J.J. McCarthy. Listen, you're the Minnesota Vikings. You traded up to pick this guy. Mm-hmm. Okay? I know we talk about Sam Darnold last year. The only reason Sam Darnold had that was because J.J. McCarthy, he was outplaying Sam Darnold in the preseason. Mm-hmm. He got hurt. Okay? So for me, I go off of what you do as an organization, not what you say. There is not another quarterback on this roster right now. I think Minnesota is telling us right now, JJ's our guy. I know we can sit here and speculate about Aaron Rodgers, but I'm just not, I think J.J. McCarthy is the guy.
You can have a great season with J.J. McCarthy, but can you win a Super Bowl with J.J. McCarthy? And if Aaron Rodgers is there and he is washed, you still have J.J. McCarthy. Yes. What I'm saying is you have an opportunity in a small window to win a championship. If you add Aaron Rodgers to that roster, you have $32 million in salary cap space. You could always go back to J.J. McCarthy as your future quarterback, right? I just don't think you are really, truly trying to win a championship or have a chance to win a championship with a first-year starter. We've never seen it before.
Which one you like?
I'm going with J.J. McCarthy. I think that's
I'd say move on from
that's what they've done all year. I'm not going to disagree with you in the sense of if they did sign Aaron Rodgers, he's a guy where you look at where Sam Darnold got this team. I don't think Rodgers is falling apart at the very end. So I understand that thought process. I just think if they were going.
Here's what we know. Here's what we know right now. You may not be in love with Dak Prescott, but I got to tell you, there ain't many quarterbacks to go around. There's not many to go around, and the draft, you got to be up at the very, very top to get one. And here it is, the Giants are at the very, very top with the ability to probably get Shedeur Sanders, and they're going to veterans that have become journeymen. I wish I had all of the right answers to tell you. I wish I did. But, everything in the NFL and trying to build a team is literally a crapshoot. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and we will see you guys real soon. Peace.